morning, I'm Terry, and welcome to TARDIS Spider. Let's start with something important. Roll Tide Roll. Alabama will be facing the Ohio State football team for the college football championship on Monday, and we want Alabama to win by a big margin. But today, developing the Daleks for television. That's right, there's a story about how the Daleks made it to the screen. So let's watch Developing the Daleks for television. Let's make sure we all enter the drawing for the Tom Baker autograph. And don't forget, most importantly, Roll Tide Roll. Creating the Daleks for TV. The origin story of the Daleks is a story as old as Doctor Who itself. In 1963, Verity Lambert, the producer charged with realizing Doctor Who on screen, hired David Whittaker as script editor for the new show. Whittaker looked inward to his own agency, Associated London Scripts, to seek out potential writers. One of the writers he approached was Terry Nation, who was working regularly for comedian Tony Hancock. Nation initially rebuffed Whittaker's advances, preferring to maintain his relationship with the very popular comedian. A falling out with Hancock, however, left Nation looking for work, and he accepted Whittaker's invitation and pitched an outline for a story called The Survivors. Whittaker accepted it immediately and commissioned a 7-part story based on the outline. Initially intended as the fourth story of the first series, the lineup was soon changed, and Nation worked an increasingly tight deadline to turn in scripts. The story was never intended as anything but a one-off serial. Neither Nation nor the BBC had any idea of what they were about to unleash on British television, or the enduring nature of the story they were creating. With the scripts written, Ridley Scott, then a young designer, who would go on to become a highly acclaimed movie director, was initially charged with designing the visual appearance of the Daleks. But when a conflict arose in Scott's schedule, the task was passed to Raymond Cusick. The script suggested a machine-like look for the Daleks, in keeping with Sidney Newman's desire that the show avoid bug-eyed monsters popular in American science fiction movies. Nation had suggested that the Daleks carry strange weapons and have arms with mechanical grips as hands, and a lens on a flexible shaft as an eye. Cusick was anxious to avoid the new aliens being portrayed as men in rubber suits, and so began sketching designs. Due to time constraints, he had only a weekend to come up with something. Realizing that the props would have to be controlled by people, and that they'd likely be inside the props all day under harsh studio lights, he decided that they might as well sit down. So he began by sketching a person in a chair and then building the design around that. Given that the person inside would also need to see, Cusick added a wire mesh around the neck and then fitted the gun stick and the manipulator arm beneath that. The operator would move the prop around by means of 3 casters mounted inside the skirt. More detailed plans of the design were drawn up, and soon after, Cusick, along with Jack Kine and Bernard Wilkie of the BBC Visual Effects Department, assembled a prototype out of wood and an electric fan heater. With the design finalized, Shawcraft Models, the contractors who had previously built the TARDIS console, were brought in to construct the working props for the serial. The Daleks were made from fiberglass and painted silver. The sensor globes on the Dalek skirts were originally going to be illuminated, but the lighting was dropped when the cost became apparent, and so the globes were painted blue instead. The claw at the end of the manipulator arm, as designed by Cusick, also proved to be too expensive, and so they were replaced by sink plungers with embedded magnets, which enabled the props to carry a limited range of items around the set. While the production team marveled at the inventiveness of the designs, particularly given Doctor Who's limited budget, the initial reaction from the cast was reportedly skeptical, although as soon as the props began to move and bark commands in their horrifying, rasping voices, all concerns were gone. The Daleks had arrived. The first episode of the serial was recorded twice, following a disaster with the microphones, meaning that they'd picked up all of the background noise, and so in the end, the broadcast episode was shot only 2 weeks before being aired. The Daleks had made their first terrifying appearances on screen, and all across the United Kingdom. Little did anyone realize quite what had been started. And for a recommendation this week, I am more than just a Doctor Who fan. I'm a fan of Alabama football. So I can recommend next Monday, watch Alabama play the Ohio State Buckeyes in the championship of American college football on television. Roll Tide, and don't forget to enjoy your journey through time and space. Make sure you take time to wear a mask, love your friends, love your family, and I will speak to all of you again soon.